most quilters probably have a few favorite stashes of fabric that they're just waiting to jump into, a bundle that they want to open and get started and have some ideas, and you're ready to get the rotary cutter out and get the sewing machine fired up. And this is that for me. I love this little bundle of fabric, and it is so, so pretty. I love the pinks, and then I found the perfect background that works well with them. But I wanted a block that I could use large pieces of those florals, because the florals are my favorite. I really appreciate the colors and the way that they're placed in the fabric. They just look beautiful. And so I decided to use two different blocks in this quilt. It's not the first time I've done that, but it does work really well sometimes with the right fabrics, particularly if you have something you want to fussy cut or a larger print that you don't want to completely cut up and you want to show it off a bit. So this has two different size blocks. One is a 9 patch and one is a 4. And you know what that means? No matching seams. We'll match up the corners as we would with any blocks, but in between there's nothing but clear sailing, or should I say clear sewing, from one end to the other, which makes it such an easy quilt. I'm Lea Louise from Inspired Quilting by Lea Louise, and this is a precious, charming little quilt. And it can be done in so many different ways, in so many different colors and styles. And notice the diagonal patterns. You can choose your colors accordingly to get those diagonals to stand out more or less. And you have them in a couple directions. The background creates a diagonal, even those large blocks. So it's a lot to look at. It's an interesting quilt, which is always a win because folks love looking at it and looking up close to see what's there. So I have the quilt information down below, pattern information if you'd like to make it. This is a small baby quilt, but I kind of like it. This, I think, is my new favorite. Of course, most every new quilt is always my new favorite. And I'm going to have to make this a bit bigger and not leave it at the baby size because there's just so many pretty fabrics. There need to be more. So there'll be an addition onto this one. But in the meantime, I want to show you how to make this quilt. But first, please, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I do hope you will, and you can join me in the future and we can share some quilts together. And if you like it, give me a thumbs up. That really helps. I appreciate it so much. So let's get started. I'm ready to quilt. Just check out this collection of fat quarters. Oh my goodness, they're absolutely beautiful. This is the Art Gallery Studio Fabrics, and this is their Color Master collection in the pink series. And I got this not too long ago. I was showing it to you earlier, a few videos ago. And you can get it in the quarter yard, half yard, full yard. You get a collection of 10, and they have them in multiple colors. So this is what I wanted to try, and I'm really anxious to get started. I'll link all the fabric and quilt information down below. But I also need a background, and so I'm going to use this. This also is a Art Gallery fabric, and it doesn't have the white. It has a creamier color, but it also has some green. Let me lift this up. I think it's a very subtle pattern, and because of the colors, it doesn't stand out a lot. It's actually the same pattern as this, just in a different color. This is what they call their vert, V-E-R-T. And it's a few years back that this came out, but I found some at the quilt store earlier this spring, and I absolutely loved it. So this is where we're going. I can't wait to show you. This is going to be patchwork. It's going to be easy, simple, quick, and fast. So let's get started. I just had to give you a sneak peek. Oh my goodness, this is the most charming little quilt. And these fabrics are perfect. They're absolutely delightful. And I love the florals alternating with the graphics and the other florals. There's some solids. But what I really like is how this background, it has a very subtle creamy green tint to it. And it just pulls everything together so nicely. And it brings some of these greens and yellows out. And I think that works really well. And I just want to show you how this looks. Whoops, we got a little fold going here. But we have the two size blocks. I'm going to show you all about that. But I just wanted you to see how awesome this is. You're going to really like this quilt, and it goes so quickly. You're not going to, this is like an afternoon quilt. It really is. It's just a matter of a few hours, and you're going to have a quilt. So let's get started. Let me show you all the details. This quilt is going to be made with two different blocks. First is a 9 patch, and it's 3 blocks by 3. We'll have 5 focal fabrics in each block, and then 4 of the background. They're all cut, or they're all sewn with 5-inch squares that I cut from my fat quarters. If you've not cut your fat quarters into pre-cut sizes, particularly 5-inch or 10-inch squares, I do have a video I'll link up above that you can watch that shows you how to do that. But let me just give you the quick rundown on this 9 patch. So what I did, let me just set this aside so you can see. Well, it doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. Is just like this. I laid my blocks out the way I wanted them. And again, I have 5 of my focal and 4 of the background. And I'm just going to sew 3 together in 3 different rows. And that just is going to be the first step of my block. Now, I do press them. You can either finger press them as you're sewing, or if you break in between, then you can iron them. And what I did with this group, because I sewed them all at one time, I just finger pressed the seam as I did the seams where they join. This one I press first just to show you, because it looks nicer and it goes a little easier if you're not used to nesting your seams. And by nesting, remember, we want to put our seams together just like this, and the seam allowance goes in opposite directions, and that seam should line up perfectly. And because I chain stitch, there's a little bit of thread right there, and if it's in the way, you can clip it, but generally I just go ahead and leave the loop there, and it works. And then I'm going to sew here and here, and I will press that. I will add this side, same thing. And then I have my finished 9 patch. So this quilt is going to be a total of only 9 blocks. Because these blocks finish at 13.5 inches, it makes it go pretty darn quick, because it gets big very fast. So I have 5 9 patches, and then in between the 9 patches, I have some 4 patches. Now, what I like about this in particular is that we are going to have 2 blocks side by side with no matching seams. Now, you can do all 9 patch, you can do all 4 patch. It's just a matter of what your preference is. But the advantage for me is that I don't have to worry about matching seams. I can just sew right through it, and it's going to go together quickly. But let me give you an idea of how this looks. Let me set that there. So if this is my center block, and we're going to alternate these. So we'll have one that goes here and here. Let me move this up a little bit. Like this. And there'll be, let's put the dark one there. And then we'll have one here. And what I like about this is the way the background really frames all the different fabrics, all the different prints. These are bigger, and I use these specifically as my bigger pieces because the floral design was on a larger scale. These are all small prints, and so if I had this on a large scale, it might look like there's too many of those. But by using the large scale print, I'm going to have a better balance throughout my quilt. And that's just going to create a really nice visual and sort of balances the design between the blocks. Bigger sizes, bigger prints, that works well. And so this is going to go just like this. And this will come here. And then the rest of these blocks go in the corners. Now, this is actually reverse of how I'm going to lay it out, because I'm putting the 9 patches in the four corners and in the middle, because I want to get the diagonal. See that diagonal that's forming across these blocks? It may be hard to see because there's not a lot sewn together yet. But if you follow this, you go right up here into that diagonal. But yet we have a bit of a diagonal with the background, and I'm really loving the smaller squares feeding into the bigger square to the smaller. And it really lets that background stand out a little bit and break up the color with all the different prints, and gives an opportunity for these larger prints to really stand out. So I'm going to go ahead and get this quilt piece. I mean, this is going together so quickly. You are going to love it. And I'm making a 9-block quilt, and that's going to finish at 40 inches, which is a great baby quilt. Or if I decide I love it, I just need to make a few more blocks, and it gets bigger quickly. So if it's at 40 inches and I add another block, that's another 13 inches. So it's going to be 53 inches. So it goes really quick. I think you're going to really enjoy this. It's simple. It's easy. 5-inch squares. These I cut at 7 1/4, and that gives us equal size blocks to put together. So let me add these blocks, get them all pieced, and show you how this is going to look. And here we are, a finished quilt. 40-ish inches square. I think it's about 40 1/2. And I love it. It looks wonderful. All these colors. Well, they're all pink, but all these prints, oh, they're just so pretty. Look at that. And the balance between the larger blocks and the smaller blocks, I think, works really well. We've got some diagonals going this way and the background diagonal that way. Oh, it's wonderful. I really enjoy this. This is such a charming little quilt. Oh, I can't wait to see it finished. Let me go ahead and get a full layout photo so you can take a look at it in its complete finished state. But first we need to do this. Oh, somehow I just think that's so pretty, the way all the colors, all the prints, the fabrics just sort of come together. Look at that. Oh my goodness, they're so pretty. All right. Now, let me get a picture of the whole quilt for you, and we're finished. This was a quick tutorial. Like I said, this is a really fast quilt to make. And here's our finished quilt. I think it's just adorable. I love those prints. It all just works so well together. And that background, the way they stagger across diagonally, the large blocks, the little blocks, and just look at how simple that is. It's just 9 easy patchwork blocks, and you'll have this done in no time. I can't wait to get this finished and quilted, and I don't even know what size I'm going to make it. I think I may have to make it bigger. It's just so sweet. I love it. I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial and learned a few things and ready to make a quilt this weekend. So have fun. I appreciate you being here. It's always a pleasure. Thanks so much.